about this incredible, powerful relation that we have with the city, with this idea of the city as the product of a process of accumulation of things, of physical things, but also of theories, of ideas, of cultural, let's say, conditions that are, in a way, producing this layered condition, which is the city, which is actually the place in which we work and which we like to produce our architecture. So our work is always related with this, let's say, more general concept of a collective built space. I will present to you tonight 7 projects through 7, let's say, architectural themes, I would say. The first one is a project that stays in, that was finished a couple of years ago, and stays in a very special place in the city, as Oliver was saying. Milan is a very special, I think, reference for modern architecture. That was, let's say, my theoretical endeavor. Oliver was mentioned before, and working in Milan has been very much the center of our preoccupation. And the relationship between, let's say, our work and the city. So that's one of the project in which we had the opportunity to reflect on this relationship, and it's a very special place because it's probably someone of you came to Milan and did, okay, and it's it's a quite a strange place because it was it has been a big void, incomplete for many years, because there was a big infrastructure then was left, and then it started to be, probably 15 years ago, the center of the contemporary city, the one of the glazed skyscrapers and all the big intervention called Porta Nuova. We are just in front of the train station. That was the building that we were supposed to transform. That was an hotel that was built in the 70s. So the project is about the transformation of this existing building that was built, that has a quite interesting story. That's the big void that I was mentioning to you. The Porta Nuova, Garibaldi area. There's this big block. They decided in the 70s to make this bridge connecting the two parts of the city, and just 2 years after they built that, I mean, it disappeared, but they built, that L-shaped building that was the hotel. It was the hotel supposed to host people working for Alitalia. So it was a kind of connecting up between Malpensa and the train station, Garibaldi train station. So the project of us, it's about the transformation and the, let's say, typological reinforcements of this building to produce a triptych, that was the title of the first theme, made out of 3 elements that are trying to engage autonomously to the 3 different sides of the city. The one that is facing the station, the one that is facing a small garden there, and then the smaller one that is facing into a very little plaza behind this block. So the idea is to, in a way, produce a new organism that is more, let's say, strong in terms of typology, and it's able to introduce to that place a richer quality and an urban quality to that place that the previous building could not do that. So in terms of typology, if you see the existing plan and the new plan, the project tries to introduce a new, let's say, bones, a new structure, typological structure to the building in order to be able to provide more flexible space for offices. So the idea is to make a building that is able to encompass different functions, mostly offices. Then the brief, let's say, changed a little bit during the process. But the idea is really to start from something that is rigid and is not, let's say, rich as a piece of a city, as something that is really trying to relate in a different way to the three parts of the city, trying to work on the angles to produce a special place in order to, let's say, fulfill this idea of the triptych. The fact that the big building in a city is a sequence of different buildings with different sides and different qualities, but still producing a unity. This is the maquette that we did for the competition. And as you see, it's a very bulky, it's a very, let's say, strong volume that wrap with these three pieces into an existing garden. And to produce this triptych, we put 3 floors, new 3 floors into the first line. And we excavated and manipulated the end of the second line, and then we added a third element to produce this enclosure and to, let's say, produce this new sequence in the city. Then if you see, this is the ground floor. Another point of interest of us was to produce this sequence, but at the same time to provide a continuity, a kind of porosity of this block through this passage that runs right in the middle of this of these 3 elements and provides connection and kind of openness of the block. Here you see the entrance of this arcade, and you see in this image the main facade of the building in front of the station and the way it articulates in the way that the new piece articulates a relationship with the existing building. So the facade and the structure and the plans were all, let's say, refurbished. So it's a very strong transformation. It's not an adaptation. But at the same time, we wanted that the new and the old piece could arguably be clear in their relationship between what was existing and what was added. Yeah, here you see the second corner in which this, let's say, articulation of the 3 blocks produce a new entrance of the portico, and in which the third element is producing a relationship with the small square. Then every one of these pieces could have a different facade, slightly different rhythm, a slightly different relationship with the shadows, and in a way reproducing what we like of the existing city. This is a photograph of one of the most famous corners in the city, of course, Oliver knows. It's, you know, here you have Gioponti, this is Mattioni, of course, the Cabrutta. By Muzio, you have another tower of Muzio there. So this image really represents the fact that you can produce a city made out of working space. So most of these places are offices, but at the same time produce a mineral city, something that is, let's say, durable, and it's made out of stone. It's not just not as slabs and glazed envelopes, as they were trying to convince us in the last years in that part of the city. So we try to, in a way, move this very strong character of the tertiary city of the 30s and the 50s in that space. Of course, trying also to, of course, this space is incredible. I think there are many things that are worth to talk about, how these buildings are trying to talk together, even if they are very far away from each other, in terms of material, in terms of figurativity, in terms of tone. And that was something that I think that as contemporary architects, we have to really think about how to make new pieces that are, in a way, are able to resonate and to engage and to create bridge and to bridge relationship with the other ones. So these are the materiality of the new triptych. So precast concrete panels that are poured, they are not sprayed, so they are very much solid, and that was another idea of the building that could, let's say, in a way, produce beauty through, in a way, longevity through durability. So the durability, I think it's part of a kind of idea of beauty that a contemporary architect can achieve or can think about working in a city that needs things that are stable, and then they can be transformed through time, but in a way they perform as stable backgrounds. So you see here the relationship between the existing structure that was completely transformed, of course, and the new additions. Then it was nice because this triptych then was taken by 3 companies, 3 major players. So it's quite interesting because you see these 3, let's say, big, let's say, international companies that are confronting and sharing the garden. While you see here that these precast elements are producing a kind of robust character to the building, with this light differences in colors, in rhythm of the facades. This is the entrance of the gallery. That's the smaller elements that slightly bends to produce a relationship with the little plaza behind the block. That's the entrance of the. So the idea of through transformation, reinforce typologically the building to be more resilient for the future on one side, on the other side to produce a robust background for the city that changes but needs still something stable and something that evokes this relationship with the mineral city of the 20th century. That's the entrance of the arcade, and the corner in which you see the articulation of the volumes. The inner, let's say, facades are more transparent and probably more, let's say, in a way, free to, let's say, articulate and to produce different relationship. Okay, this first project is very much related to the project Oliver was mentioning, that it has been one of our first built project, probably the first one in terms of relevant project in the city, and the condition is almost similar. We're just in front of the central station, just in front of the big void. You come into when you come with the train to Milan. It's a fantastic space, of course, because it was the entrance of the metropoli that was produced in the 50s, in the 30s before, but then in the 50s, and it's made out of these different blocks in which there was one that was very much problematic in terms of structure, in terms of fire prevention, in terms of also vertical connection. So the client decided, we are here in probably 12 years ago, decided to demolish and to make a competition to rebuild. And that's one photograph by Vincenzo Castelli. I don't know if you heard him. It's a very good photographer, Italian Naples photographer that is always doing this very nice photograph of the city. Is choosing always a very good point to provide this very strong depth of the image, and it's of course during the demolition side. So that's the Bacciocchi. It's an architect in the 50s. The Bacciocchi projects of the square that wanted to make an homogeneous backdrop of the entrance of the city, where producing a transformation of this piece. Then he, let's say, produced just that piece and didn't produce all this. But there's this idea of something very sober, very, let's say, rational, and we could say very repetitive, that produce an homogeneous backdrop. We are in Piazza Repubblica now, so we are facing the Stazione Centrale, so you see also in this case this bunch of elements that are very much different but are so strongly producing a unity. So our idea was to trying to work on continuity with the existing building, trying to produce something new, but at the same time something that seemed older, something that seemed pre-existent, something that could really connect with the existing situation. That's the maquette always of the competition, in which you see that the building is producing with this double height a very is trying to produce a slender presence, a very precise figure, and producing a crown over there to make a garden and to make a rooftop restaurant that's also an hotel, connecting with the existing situation over there. That's the piece of the building that was left. So that building was actually wrapping the corner. So we demolished from this point on the building, but you see how the project tries to relate and to, in a way, to reinterpret what was still existing. So this is a photograph of the new elements through the big square. And also in this case, the facade is made out of these precast elements that in this case are poured, so they were thin, because the city was trying to be very quick in producing new elements for the Expo. We are 2015, so it was a very special moment of transformation of the city, very quick, because the international exhibition was to come to the city. So everything has to be very quick in terms of construction. So we produced these things that were hanged quite quickly. And then this idea of this is the clinker traditional facade, and this is of course something that tries to put in the two pieces in dialogue. That's the corner. The building is quite thin in terms of plan, so it's all about producing a relationship between the rooms and the city, the rooms of the hotel and the city. Also in this case, there's this line which is quite high, is 10 meters, that is producing this portico that wraps the building and tries to introduce a kind of monumental public circle that tries to relate with the crown. You see, we didn't do the interior of this project. Unfortunately, when you do hotels, there's always an interior design architect that makes the interior part. And but still, I think it's nice it has been nice to think about these corner rooms and these spaces that are, let's say, relating very strongly with the city, and they're trying to visually frame. This is the Pirellin Tower, if you know, also Gio Ponti, the station. They're trying to frame quite clearly the panorama. Yes, you see here there's a plan in which there's this really quite dense service situation in the back with 3 staircases, all the elevators, or the things that were necessary to produce the circulation, while it's a very traditional plan, and while on the city, all the rooms are facing the city and are taking advantage of this very special place. It's also quite cheap hotel, so it's I think it's a nice place to stay, and that's the rooftop that actually was supposed to be a fantastic cafeteria, but then the guy of the hotel said, no, let's make a penthouse. So it's a very bad it's a very bad, I mean, it could have been a nice place to have an aperitivo in Milan, but unfortunately, maybe with the time, they will change their mind. But still, you see that it's a quite thin element that really tries to work on this strongly on this relationship, especially when the portico in the first floor and in the ground floor, it's really, let's say, producing very strong relationship with the outside. So there's this idea that the double floor with this taper of these elements, so that they're starting bigger and then they're kind of getting lighter and lighter until the crown. This idea of the taper of the structure, that of course is an idea of a structure because the structure is behind and it's regular, in a way could relate with the taper of the presence of the Pirelli, in which you see that the incredible structure of Gioponti was, let's say, articulating these vertical lines tapering towards the top. So this idea that the quality of the new piece could, in a way, be nurtured and be, let's say, influenced by the qualities of the things that were existing. Some of them coming from the last piece of Bacciocchi, some of them coming from the lightness of the structure of the tower. Yeah, and also in this case, this idea of the facade that could, let's say, express a kind of robust structural character that could also work as an environmental, let's say, device in order to produce shadow and, in a way, avoid this kind of screens that are necessary to produce a contemporary tertiary housing office building in Italy today. The third case is a pavilion in a very special also, sorry, I always say special place because I'm very you know, when you start working in places, every place is very special, but still this is a quite special place because it's a listed garden. Listed means that you have to you have to be very careful with gardens and with the trees and things of this Renaissance villa, this Bicocca degli Arcimboldi on the north side of the city, which is the seat of Pirelli. Pirelli are the guys of the tire, no? of the car tires. Of course, you know them. So there was this very important plan in the 90s by Vittorio Gregotti that was this very important competition to make a whole new piece of the city. We are there. That's no, sorry, I have the pointer, but anyway, that's the Bicocca, which is this quite small piece into the garden. And that was a restricted competition, and we had to work with a new piece. I mean, that's the campus of Pirelli, the public building of the campus. So all the public activities of a working community, the big canteen, and then the learning center, especially the gym, other welfare activities, but still to produce a new, let's say, more public community building into the campus, to produce a square in front of the foundation, Fondazione Pirelli, which has an amazing archive of the Pirelli history, which was a very important player in the transformation of the city, and to produce a relationship and a closure towards the listed garden, which the Bicocca is still there. Of course, it has been very much refurbished. Now it's actually the place where the CEO is having his lunch. So it's a very private, let's say, situation, but at the same time very collective in terms of working communities. That's the pastiche of Bicocca, that has been restored many times. And yeah, in the Fondazione there's the archive of Pirelli, which is also famous for the calendario. I don't know if you ever saw some calendari, I don't know how to say in English, how do you say calendari? The place in which you see the dates. Calendar, yeah. And they produced in the 50s very sophisticated visual culture, advertising and say space for selling, with incredible graphic designer Bob Nord and other guys. And we wanted to, in a way, engage with this richness, which is an existing richness, which is not physical, but it's, let's say, cultural, I would say. And then we looked at this building, which is still a seat of a silk production company that was built in by Piero Portaluppi, which is one of the hero in Milan in the 20s, with this very nice Ceppo stone facade, very delicate in terms of ornament, in terms of almost, let's say, referring to the character of the silk that this company was producing. So we decided to work once more with the concrete precast element and trying to introduce the cultural richness that I showed you into the construction of these concrete elements through these patterns that are sometimes are very much related to the tire, let's say, geometry. Some others are more Portaluppian or Leverance or things that are coming from other things. And we produce the rubber, and that's the construction of the building that also in this case is a very opaque construction. Is not something very glazed and transparent, something that it closes towards the street and it has this opaque crown. And it's made out of these precast elements that are sometimes hanged, sometimes are load-bearing. In this case, they are hanged, and they are, let's say, in this case, producing the entrance. In this case, so you see that there's this is the figure that is repeating. So it's a curved element that has this ornament and relates also to the metal work that are producing a protection towards the street. Like this, in this case, these columns actually are load-bearing. This is the relationship of the building towards the garden, and you see how the main building is 3-story, and then the canteen is extending towards the garden with just 1 story. There's a very nice terrace there, in which there's the second restaurant of the community, so you can stroll out on the terrace and you can stay outside into the garden. So it's a nice space for the ones working in that space that should have, before the existence of the building, should have, let's say, go in a very far away situation to have lunch. But the most important piece of the brief is the learning center. It's all this, let's say, teaching and communication space that are, let's say, organized through these 2 floors. The main canteen is producing a portico towards the garden. So you see there's a quite thick element. It's 20 meters, and there's this line that is producing a quite interesting space through the building, especially in the first and the second floor, in which there that organizes the rooms, the small one, the big one of the learning center. There's a small auditorium there. So all these, let's say, space are used daily to introduce the products and to make, let's say, teaching activities for the community. So that's these big elements that cross through the space and goes up to the 3rd floor, which is, of course, lighted from above. That's another staircase. There are 2 staircases that are, let's say, more organic, that are organized along the main building, and this is the relationship between the inside, which is quite, let's say, simple, and the outside garden. The rooms, the relationship with the foundation, and the portico that leads you to the bicocca, to the villa, in which you see this relationship between the corniche of the Renaissance windows and the curved elements of the new building talking together. Yeah. So that's another case. It's the completion of a block, which is another situation very common in the city. So you have to, let's say, articulate corners. You have to complete blocks. In this case, the completion was quite kind of a weird situation because we're still in a square in front of a train station. This is the Gare du Nord in Brussels. There's this big element by Xavier de Gaeter. It's a big canopy. This is Avenue du Jardin, which is fronting the Jardin Botanique here. So there's the Pentagon of the city of Brussels. And it's a weird situation because they made the infrastructure, the underground infrastructure over there. And so this piece of this block remained left for years. This one, this is a photograph before the construction. So this piece of the block remained completely, let's say, a garden for dogs. I mean, completely unused, and it was an incredible opportunity to complete this listed building by Antoine Pompe that make this block as a kind of sequence of hotels that are hotels made in the 20s that, let's say, have kind of the main facade left. So that was the challenge, to complete the block on one side to produce a new relationship with the Place Roger, which is this one, and to extend actually. So to extend an existing hotel. So our idea was really that's the situation that was before the underground construction that occurred in the late 70s. So there was this sequence of small houses that were completing the block. This is the famous Hotel Palace, and these are other hotels. So that was, the train station arrival also in this case. So the competition was about the extension of this and that hotel through this element. And in this case, we worked on this idea of, as in the other case of, let's say, cultural continuity between the new piece and the existing one, in relation to something that was, let's say, very different, that was produced through the last years, very different. And we tried to produce this continuity by adding this very thin element that is articulated in a sequence of two buildings that are different in terms of facade, but especially in terms of structure, and that articulate the program, which is not just hotel rooms, but also a conference center and some commercial spaces and a restaurant in a kind of sequence of two elements that are trying to relate with their figure to the things that they are continuing. So it's not an horizontal presence, but it's something that is articulated with two, let's say, squarish figures that are producing a line here. There's the line, is the entrance of the space. That's another thing. This is the Monadnock building in Chicago. I don't know if you ever heard about this incredible office building that was made out of two different pieces, two different architects, but the same material, but producing a blurred relationship between the two elements. That's a maquette of a student of us. And while this is a very nice work of Rachel Whitehead, this English contemporary architect, in which there's this cast sequence of elements that are producing a unity in relationship to the base. So that was one of the most important idea of the competition. Then the other important idea of the competition was to produce something very thin that could, let's say, in a way, express a facade that was the expression of the form of the spaces behind the facade. So the facade is not something that is, let's say, neutrally running through the rooms, but it's something that is really much about the expression of the spatiality of the facade, something that you can really blow and produce something. That is, of course, something very Bruxelles was. This is a very nice building that we have quite close to the building site. So that's the facade, the extended facade, in which you see how these elements, the two pieces relate to the dimension of the existing without producing a modernistic horizontality, but rather trying to produce something that could articulate the two elements and especially focus on the entrance, producing a space for the conference center, these commercial elements, and then producing also this kind of little gap between the two pieces, just like the Monadnock makes in Chicago. And that's the plan in which you see this very dense sequence of big rooms. We are here, the big room and the small rooms of the offices, the corner, which is something very special in Brussels, but anyway, everywhere in the city, and then the place, the space of the square. The sequence of rooms once more, so some of them are bow windowed, some of them are bay windowed, and some of them are producing this step inside interiority of this very dense block. And then you see here in the section the fact that this line that divides the two pieces is also a very important structural line, because in this case there's this big span of the big room of the conference center, while in that case it's a more relaxed situation. And the fact that this is the infrastructure, and so the building actually cantilevers like this. So this is the step situation, but mostly half of the building, but sometimes it's 2/3 of the building is really cantilevering towards the structure. So the construction is quite impressive because of this very strong structural endeavor on one side. On the other side, this structural endeavor is not visible, is not so much expressed in the facade, but it's, let's say, hidden behind this, let's say, this curtain wall that, as in the Chicago building, I don't know if you ever seen the fantastic building that were produced at the beginning of the century, late 19th century in Chicago, in which there were the iron metal structure and then this very thin ceramic facade. So that's the entrance. And then this is the maquette once more of the competition, in which you see the clock that is now appearing, that is appearing, you know, it depends on the moment of the projects. We hope that it will be appearing back, because now it's left, but there's this idea of having also some special thing that is, let's say, also reminding that there was a train station and something, a kind of urban signature that also focus on the entrance. So you see the sequence of the facades that are trying to relate, and these two conditions that are articulating. So that's the cantilever. That's actually this image. It's some months ago. It's much it's much more extended now. But you see, this is the big room. You see how it cantilevers there, and then there's a big span. So there are two completely different structures. And this, let's say, structural difference for us was kind of important element to provide this doubleness. No, otherwise it's just a painted thing, while it's really a kind of double situation. And then, of course, this idea of the clock. This is a very nice Minoletti project in Milan that was unfortunately very much transformed, with this idea of something that could, let's say, introduce something also very light, but could be a kind of a piercing of the body, much more mineral presence of the station. And it's a moon clock. That project was made by Piovene Fabi. The project of the hotel was made through the, let's say, a collaboration with Piovene Fabi, which is another Italian-Belgian practice we've been collaborating with. So that's moon clock, probably it will appear back, but it's another, let's say, Milanese, in a way, reference through this Brussels project. The courtyard reformation, I'm a little bit long. I have 1 hour, no, Oliver? Yeah, okay. I will skip the seventh one. The courtyard reformation, it's a completely another situation in Milan. It's an insertion of a new courtyard into a 19th century building. Something that occurred in the city very much often. We were very much bombed in the Second World War, and the city center is made out of very dense courtyard building. This is a BBPR intervention into a courtyard building, while this is a BBPR intervention on top of an existing 19th century building. So we are very close to these spaces, and we were asked also, that was a competition, to make a refurbishment of this this jewel house that was designed by Giuseppe Sommaruga, which is a very famous architect in Milan in the 20th century. So that was the building, and then was a jewel office. So that was bought by a famous company producing watches, Rolex, and to make their own headquarters. So that's the facade that has been, of course, restored, but the project is much more about producing this new internal element that could provide a new facade of the existing building, provide a new organizational layout of the offices, and provide new light through the rooms that were very much problematic in terms of light in relation to the existing courtyard, which is that one. This is the new courtyard, which has almost the same dimension. It's quite small. It's 12 per 18. This is the new staircase that produced with the courtyard this new clarity through the building. The courtyard then extends a little bit, and then it becomes a new rooftop for the event of the company. So that's the relationship between the built, let's say, substance and the new glazed element that was the maquette that we produced for the competition. And so the project is about producing a new relationship between the courtyard and the rooms through this bronze, very expensive frame of elements producing this very thin space, which is that one. And then, of course, the staircase, that is also a very important element, Victor Orta and, of course, Portaluppi and Sommaruga, and then the staircase of this house, of this noble house, that is completely new, that is made out of concrete. The new door The grill, it was trying to reconnect with Sommaruga, very nice metal detailing. This incredible grid that opens for different reasons to provide access to the courtyard. Yeah, and the new structure is concrete. Yeah. Okay. We're doing this project with Bauku, which is the library in the city, which is a project that was conceived 30 years ago. Boles and Wilson, this famous office from Munster, I think, won the competition. Then many years passed, and they remade the competition, and they reduced the program of the library, but still it's the public library of the city of Milan didn't have, let's say, a proper, let's say, public library. So that's something that was in the mind of the city for many years. They moved the place, so we are now a little bit in an outer space in relation to the previous space, but still it's in the same area. We are here. There's this train Porta Vittoria station, and this very strong line, which is the circular onion, let's say, green that rounds the city. So the idea is about producing a double building, something that produces a double figure in relation to different things, in relation especially to the double program of the library, which is something that relates to a very classical idea of a public library, and something very, let's say, much more fluid, much more, let's say, undetermined, that is called forum. So we worked from the very beginning with this idea of producing a building that is made out of two pieces, like this incredible photograph that you know probably, or this very small church in Pisa that is mentioned by Venturi in the book of Venturi. So this idea of producing a productive figure in the city, something that was in a way evoking a productive space, because it's a space not for just storing the culture, but also to produce culture. That was one of the main points of the brief, and one of the main ideas, to produce something that is related to production rather than, let's say, storing and conservation, and then a kind of public space that could be a big serra in the garden that is, let's say, existing in that space, which is a space that has been very much problematic in the 20 years, but it's, let's say, in a way, starting to work. That space now that is running east-south. So we are in the middle of this east side corridor, and this is the volumetry, which is produced by these two elements, and then a third one, which is the children library, which is making the line with Viale Molise. So it's a very simple volume that articulates a very, very, very complex program that hopefully will be hosting the library in a couple of years, maybe a little bit less. Here you see a relationship with the volume and the city, the relationship between the ground floor and this very big plaza. So the idea is to put the library in that side in order to. There's a big train underground station. Things that are, let's say, repeating in life. No, so there's a big. So in this case, we decided to avoid the structure and to stay aside from the structure, and to let's say produce a very compact building that could, let's say, in a way, this is 50 and this is 70. So it's a very compact volume that still need light, because it's 50. It's very difficult to be lighter. So it's articulated by these two volumes that, of course, when they go up, they taper and they provide space for both conditions. So in this image, you see is the garden, the big square, and in this case, a very transparent present, like a serra, like a greenhouse, like a productive, let's say, space, something that is, in a way, evoking and is, let's say, combining these two image, something productive, something related to the garden. It's a green metal envelope that wraps the building and, let's say, protect the building from the sun, from the very bad Milanese sun. You know that with this climate change, the Milanese weather conditions are getting worse and worse. So there's a huge problem in that. So we are, let's say, we're conscious that there's been done a very strong work with our consultant on this idea of having an envelope that could be in relation to the different angles sufficiently opaque to protect and but at the same time sufficiently open to provide light into this very deep element. This is the third piece, which is red ceramic that is much more smaller, and it's the kids element. So you see the section here in which you really see the difference now. The two Gemini, which are of course not very much the same. This is more high, less dense. This is very dense, very repetitive. The structure is bigger. The structure is lower. This is a wooden structure. And then, of course, this is the space for serious guys. This is the space for the ones that are looking for some. So it's a kind of different condition which is linked through this bridge, which I will show you. But before, I would like to just mention the fact that this building is supported by this very big room that has been built. Actually, that is the room of the books, in which they store 2.5 million books that are, let's say, scaffolded. They're embedded in this quite weird metal structure that is something like that. I don't know if it's. I mean, this is something. This is not the project, but it's something that is already existing in another situation. So there are these elements that are picking up the books, and that you will see. You will be able to see these things into the holes of the pavement, into this very big window that is on the. Oh, sorry, that is underground. I was mentioning you the fact that the meteorological and the environmental and condition are a very big part of the project. So we work with the idea of having 1/3 of the building that is not air conditioned. So we said, okay, the red one has air conditioning, let's say, sorry for the simplification, while this is not conditioned at all, and it works like a greenhouse. All the windows are openable, and in the summertime it will be slightly hot. In the wintertime it will be slightly cold. To do that, the facades and the openness of the facades is very much important. This is the a mock-up of the facade. And some image of the ground floor, the entrance of the ground floor, the promenade that is cutting through, the bridge that I was telling you connects the two elements. And this is kind of a big public square with a library, a bookshop, some cafeteria, some places to gather the new magazines, the bridge that is connecting the forum, which is the more flexible space, together with the Dipartimenti, which is the serious one, and then this very strong transparency between the square and the inner space, which is, let's say, an intermediate space. So it's an unconditioned space, which is supposed to work in continuity with the city. And then this is the entrance in the back. There's a big tree here that was actually not here. It was moved at the beginning of the construction site to produce this nice space to enter and to cross the public space, even if you don't want to go into the library. So that was the the move of the tree. That was kind of an enterprise. Okay, I think that probably I stop here because I want to take. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late. Sorry, I was very much enthusiastic to explain you everything, but it was a little bit longer. So thank you very much. Thank you. Next time, the 7th project, maybe, if you invite me. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So I'm usually the guy who has to ask the first question. I hope there will a lot of other questions appear. And actually, to be honest, I have already several ones, but maybe let's start with a rather simple one. I mean, I noticed that, there is in your work, I think, quite a lot of attention for proportion, let's say. I would say that is one of the key elements in order to relate to the city and to the scale. And there is also especially a certain preference for the Kolossalordnung, that's called in Germany. That's when you take two floors together in order to let the building look somehow bigger and smaller at the same time. And I was just wondering, the sensibility for the proportion, is it a certain method, or is that based on intuition, or how you, let's say, define the scale and, let's say, the system of the arrangement of the orders? Because you showed also, let's say, I found it very interesting, especially I think in the first project, different facade systems that were based on a certain order that you could combine somehow in a way, and I think that is an interesting approach also to deal with, let's say, commissions that basically are too big in order to fit in the usual plot size of a city. And maybe you can say something about that kind of way of working, how you do that.
No, it's a quite difficult question, actually, for the first question. I hope the second one is easy. No, I would like to come back to the image of Milan, because while you were telling me that, I was thinking about the fact that to produce a relationship within the city, which is, or to produce meaning in the city, which is the very heart of our preoccupation, how to produce a meaning and also true proportion. I think that it's very much important to think about that the existing city is made out of things that are very much different in terms of scale. Okay, sorry, that was, sorry. It was a little bit schizophrenic, sorry. But I was, not to talk about the product, but to talk about the existing city, that is very much reassuring. The fact that I think that I think it's very nice about the European city is the fact that there's a unity. You can say for sure that we are in a very special spot, but still there's a unity. And this unity is achieved not through, let's say, a regularity of proportion. So it's not, you don't have a rule. So you have to do all the buildings 20 meters, or you have to make the facade every 10 meters. So actually, you can produce, let's say, an ambiente, let's say, a kind of meaningful relationship through difference, and that's one thing that I think it's something that you can see in the city. So of course there are some, if you think about, Paris, Haussmann, it's all about a different one line of height. But on the other side, the indeterminacy, but also in this case, which is a very, let's say, consistent and historical, let's say, situation, still you have very strong difference. But they've been built in 30, 40 years, all these things, except maybe that one. But actually, so the fact that you can produce unity through difference, that's the first thing I would say. And the fact that I think that it's nice when a building is able to encompass different scale. A building is able to, because it relates to the city, because it's not, a precise form in which the beauty's proportion is about just one figure, but is made out of a sequence of an accumulation, an assemblage of different elements that can be smaller or bigger. And this difference between piece are, in a way, let's say, referring to the variety and the richness of the existing city. So that's I think it's very much interesting, and it's something that for many years I think it was. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that some modernistic idea of the perfect object that could solve everything with just one proportion probably can fit in some situation, but probably in our cities that are much, let's say, damaged and compromised by a very, let's say, complex layered condition. I think that is not probably the most easy answer, but it's much more easy to relate with this complexity. Mm-hmm. So that's and then relating to this problem of proportion. Yes, I am not so much conscious about that, but really I think that as we are working with the volumes from the very beginning, but of course this is there's nothing special, but still I think that there's a kind of volumetrical interest in how buildings engage with the existing situation, which is a very physical dimension. Do it smaller, bigger? How much an horizontal or a vertical presence change in relation to the things? So the point is how to adjust or to interpret or to completely transform a situation through a new proportion. So I think that's one of the main, the most challenging and the most also enjoyable things of architecture. How really through proportion you can give completely different answers to the same problem. That's amazing. I mean, and when we have to decide if we have to make hypothesis A, B, C, the different stance and the different take the project, that it's I think that the most important, the most special moment of the project in which you have to really evaluate how proportion and measure can enhance or negotiate with the different conditions you find in the city. which is something that does not, of course, it happens also in a garden, but in the city it's even more important.
Okay, thank you. So, are there questions from the audience? Sam, do you want to ask a question? Please.
Milano, ambiente that you the city is not like one fits all. It's like you are looking for projects in the city, right?
Yeah, of course. It's also related to life. No, you live in a city and you have the possibility to work in that place. I mean, it's not granted, but still, through the years, we produce a kind of special relationship with this space, with this place that started to become not just the place to work, but also the place to learn how to how to be an architect or how to relate with the problems. And of course, it could be a little bit pathetic on sometimes, because come on, the relationship with the city, you know, this Milanese kind of also discourse. So it's a kind of culture that needs every time to reassure itself through the reference of the city. So that's also kind of risky, I think, in relating to the place where you live and relating. I mean, it's very to me it's very relevant, but at the same time it's very risky. So I think, for example, that the Milanese culture, the architectural culture, has been very much special because it was nurtured and it was, let's say, informed by many other cultures that, let's say, were, let's say, mixed, you know, in a way, and they were producing incredible piece of architectures by this combination. So it's not something that is, let's say, auto-reproducing, but it's something that is able to be critical and then to be open to other. So I think that the work of a contemporary architect should be like this one. Should go and see and learn through a much wider perspective, and then, if it is possible, to merge and negotiate with something much local. At the end, I think it's the most important quality of a project, of a building, is to be special in terms of local relationship, to give a precise local response, and at the same time to be universal. And this universality you don't find by just referring to these five guys, no, but you are referring to. So, of course, then I started to make my PhD, and then it was even more strong, that relation. But I think that all of you have a strong relationship with the city, even if it's not the city you are working with. I think I remember when I was in Porto, it was my reference. No, everything that was in Porto, it was fantastic. Then I moved to Porto. So I think it's important, this very strong relation. I don't know if I answered too much, because probably I skipped the first part of the question.
No? No question.
Okay. Something better or different?
You mean the hotel in the station? No, what's the third? Yeah. Yeah, that's actually the oldest one. Yeah, so it was, of course, as every competition, it's an endeavor of probably 30 days, and then probably the things that you do in these 30 days, you continue through your life, because of course they are so relevant for you, because it's the first time that you have a very important experience in terms of project. That then of course you have this. I think that in terms of construction, the one thing that I would not do now but it was not our choice actually. It was this lighter element. I'm not saying that light or heavy are, let's say, one is bad, the other one is good. The point is that, I think that one critical point of that project, if I can say, is that the fact that if I'm not sure how it will behave through the years. Which is something that I think that it's a responsibility and a part of the beauty of a building, how the building behaves through the years. It can be shiny at the very beginning, but then after 20 years it should be nicer. So that's one. And I'm afraid, but this is not our fault actually, but it were, let's say, a lot of other things. The fact that it has been built through a technology, through a type of construction that, of course, it produced the figure that we wanted, because it's really what we wanted actually, but at the same time not sure it will be, let's say, last. And the fact that lasting is a kind of, I think that is the most special way to interpret sustainability. Much more than other rhetorics. If something lasts, it means that you don't have to change. You don't have to change the facade every 40 years, and you don't have this stress of changing because it's not behaving nicely through time. That's probably, the thing. But yes. But then, of course, you change. I mean, now, for example, I think we are now doing the library with now another public project in the city, a school, and I think that it's also, I mean, life is long. I think that we are not now much more interested in the collective space, and how this durability of the collective space can perform. So of course the facade is collective for sure, but still, Yeah.
Okay, more questions? I have another question. Because say it was interesting to see the series of projects, and I had a bit idea that the first projects were all related basically to the existing city, so there was a lot of obvious direct context, and were also more commercial projects. They're like office building or hotel and so on. And the answer was, I think, very close to a sort of quite obvious sensibility for Milan. It was dealing with the proportion, the material, and so on. And I was a bit amazed when you see the library. It seems that you take, on one hand, much more risk in terms of materialization, because the materialization was, I mean, different, because in the other buildings it was also more about mass and concrete and so on, and the library has a bit also this kind of a little bit like a high-tech approach. Yeah? And I had also the idea that the library, the issue of the icon was much more obvious, so not just extend the city, but also bring in something new. And I was wondering what you could say about this kind of difference, or if you also experience it as a difference, because I think that especially the climatic stuff seems for me very risky.
It's true. You're right that I mean, I skipped the 7th project, which is let's say, no, sorry. which was the good one. No, which was still an object in the field, like the library. It's not a piece of something pre-existing, but let's say with a very low technique situation. So that was interesting. But I know what I completely agree what you're saying, that the project of the library has been much more risky in terms of figure and in terms of climatic endeavor and climatic ambition. So, of course, when you have to, the very heart of the question is, is it possible to produce a public building today? Is it possible to produce a monumental figure today without being rhetoric and without being, let's say, or being to risk, let's say, a kind of pathetic stance towards what is public? So the idea was to combine a very simple figure, which is to us the idea of a collective figure. So everything that is very much recognizable and simple to understand can be, let's say, simply collective. That was one side. And the other side, at the same time, to be sustainable, but not through, let's say, the narrative of the green and the narrative of the sheet, of the Louvre, of the Brie Soleil, things like that, but in terms of, can we produce a building that it needs 1/3 of the energy less than a normal building? That was, let's say, the combination of the two things. To be on one side monumental and collective, on the other side to be, let's say, very ambitious in terms of, and that, of course, you can do that when you're doing a public structure. Of course, yes, a facade is public, but still you are talking about the background of the city, while in that case it was for the first time. I mean, we did some smaller public building, but in that case there was this responsibility of producing something. Of producing something much more relevant for the city. So there's of course a very big gap, I think. But on the other side, I would like let's say, these two projects in a way relate in terms of the way the physicality of things, the so-called, the facades, the smaller element, in a way relate to the existent, something that is still existing in the city. So, for example, this big industrial space in the city, of course, are figures that are already there. So I think that in a way, even the public space, the public library, even if it's more risky in a way, relates to this idea of continuity, probably in a much more radical way. Of course, in terms of construction, it's very different and challenging, yeah.
Okay. So, I would say, no more questions? No? Yes? I would say, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.